glad you joined us today. This Sunday, the closing hymn in worship is "My Hope is Built on Nothing Less," and the refrain is from a story that Jesus told, which is found in both New Testament Gospels of Matthew and Luke. Jesus had been teaching his followers many things: how to pray, how to be generous, to trust God, and much more. And finally, he said, "Everyone who hears my words and acts on them will be like the wise man who built his house on a rock. The rains came, the floods came, the winds blew and beat on the house, but it did not fall because it had been founded on rock. And everyone who hears my words and does not act on them will be like the foolish man who built his house on sand. The rains came, the floods came, the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell. And great was its fall." The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. I have a fun song that tells this story of the wise man and the foolish man. And here are the motions that we'll use. Wise, like he has a very good idea. Foolish, like he's confused. Build. House. Rock. Sand. Rain. Flood. And smash. The wise man built his house upon a rock. The wise man built his house upon a rock. The wise man built his house upon a rock, and the rains came tumbling down. The rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up, but the house on the rock stood firm. The foolish man built his house upon the sand. The foolish man built his house upon the sand. The foolish man built his house upon the sand, and the rains came tumbling down. The rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up, and the house on the sand went smash. So, this Sunday, the hymn at the end of worship is "My Hope is Built on Nothing Less." Interesting fact, this tune was written by William B. Bradbury, the same composer who wrote the hymn that we learned last week, "Savior Like a Shepherd Lead Us." It was first put out and published during the Civil War. This tune is called "Solid Rock," and I think in a moment you'll see why. Let's look at this tune for a minute. You can see on the first line and the second line, the melody, the notes, are the very same. There's the first line and the second line, very same. You look at the third and the fourth lines, the music is quite different, but the words repeat. Those last two lines are called the refrain, which is the part of a song or a hymn that comes back the very same every time at the end of every verse. So when you're singing the refrain, you can use some of the signs and the motions that we use for our fun song, Rock and Sand. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand, all other ground is sinking sand. So I'm going to sing verse 1, and when we get to the refrain, you sing too. My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly lean on Jesus' name. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand, all other ground is sinking sand. I'm so glad you joined us today. Let's end our time together with our closing song by Natalie Sleeth. Please stand up in your best singing posture and sing with me. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Blessings.